So what's up with 1.6?
Oh,
Yeah.
so Scum and Villainy 1.6 is officially out. And if you're a Kickstarter backer, you can find it at the appropriate link from your Kickstarter update. And if you're not a Kickstarter backer, you can find it on Drive-Thru RPG by searching for Scum and Villainy.
Yeah, or just following that link right there. Well, speaking of which, welcome to actual play, Scum and Villainy Stardancer.
Hello,
Oh, you're
everybody.
gonna Hi, everybody.
How's it going?
Really good.
Good.
Back for another hopefully exciting episode.
It'll be boring.
Chased by Darth Vader and flying into a supernova. How is this not going to be exciting?
Well, we have some interpersonal arguing to do.
Sure.
So.
That's going to be really dull too.
Yeah.
Also way underwhelming.
Wonderwhelming right there.
Whoa. We'll do our best.
Hello, folks. Josh, you want to recap for us? Tell us what we're
Yeah,
doing?
sure. This is Scum and Villainy episode 5. And in episode 4, just real quick going through my notes here.
Sir, some serious notes.
The end of the last job had an acquisition of a Yaru by the name of, or the model was nicknamed David by the crew. And so the crew spent some time trying to interact. Loren took the stance that he's just a thing. You shouldn't give him a name because then you're going to want to keep him. And a lot of the trip kind of drugged out of her mind. And Boz tried really politely to teach someone how to be independent when the very concept of independence was a little bit difficult for them. We got some cool tidbits where David apparently liked making little wire statues of Burden. And we also got some interesting tidbits with sandwiches. And David calling Faye Zero for, as heretofore, not 100% understood reasons.
Yeah, Faye could have probably figured that out if she wasn't trying to avoid it and going, no, I'm not listening, by way of being super drugged out the entire time.
I'm sure it's fine.
Far be it from me to force your face on top of your own self-delusions. You guys approached the Sahir ship, so we got to see one of the canonically powerful and interesting Xeno peoples in the setting.
Mm-hmm.
You guys went on board. The Sahir have 6-jointed fingers and people that speak for them. You guys had some delicious Sahir dessert wine, and upon deciding to deliver David over to his fate, there was a big argument between Loren and Faye, where Faye blamed Loren, and the two of them got into a big fight. And my favorite moment in that was Loren's quote that you don't just do things, for money. You do actually care about people. Or at least that was the implication, even if it wasn't explicitly stated.
Mm-hmm. There was blushing.
Boz, yeah, there was
very close contact.
Yeah. It was intimate
Boz
conversation.
Had a final touching farewell with David. He was turned over to the Sahir. You guys collected 8 cred. You landed on Indri, which is a orange-skied, acid, atmosphered, awful industrial planet.
I love that place. What are you talking about? Awful. It was great.
It's actually pretty kind of cool. It's got a little bit of a steampunky vibe with everyone wearing gas masks and whatnot.
It's pretty good.
We got to meet Faye's friend Aura. We got to see House Mount Clythe official ship land. We got to see Burden almost maul poor dock workers. Folks trained, including Boz and Loren. And Faye decided against better judgment to try and sneak onto the Mount Clythe ship.
Why? Would you remind us why Faye did that? Because I have a feeling the reason was not sound.
I mean, it was just she wanted to find out what they were doing and what they knew about us, and
which is apparently a lot.
Yeah, which is apparently a whole heck of a ton, so which is a unit of measure.
Now it is
in space.
It is.
It's in at least 3, if not 4 or 5 dimensions.
Yeah.
There was a delightful escapade where you shot a bunch of bullets, didn't manage to take out Core, got onto your ship, and skedaddled off. The couple of notes that I want to add is there are 2 jobs currently on deck, one of which is a rapid-fire short-term delivery of plant matter in stasis, the planet of Amarath, which the fastest route, and the reason this job wasn't taken by other much more cautious
Sensible.
or reasonable or sensible people, yes, is because the shortest route, and the route that requires the amount of time that it's going to take, goes right through the Ring of Fire, which is between the suns of Iota, the twin suns. And also there's a second job, which is receiving a slightly secretive note delivered by a little Urbot in a restaurant. You met with Barhazuk, who was enticed to meet a dog, and then in the escapades ended up on the ship.
Better than leaving them behind.
And he
I just love that we lured him on by being like, "You can meet our dog."
You know, dog,
Like, oh,
oh, I wonder what a pony dog is, or what they actually look and feel like.
so yeah, you met him in the wastelands, you brought him back, he was part of the escapade, and he ended up on your ship. But he mentioned that there is a ship with many Urbots of a specific type, and the Prime believes that the person that brought them here is seeking a method of direct control for them. And so he has asked you to go to a specific location, which I don't know if it was mentioned previously, but it's the fifth moon of Nightfall, in order to recover the item that does that before this other person can get it.
because Barhazuk thinks that he's going to use this item to basically like make them an army, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, or something, servants, whatever, but make them bow to his will.
Yeah.
And I believe that's the recap for last episode.
Nice.
Nothing happened. My goodness.
Yeah, super slow.
Yeah.
Awesome. So, just to add a little bit of flavor, I believe we narrowly. Well, a couple things happened. One, Barzak wasn't fast enough, so we all collectively that was a consequence, and we resisted it by collectively grabbing him and helping him move along so he could get on the ship and not be left.
Mostly having Burden tug him along, but yes.
That was it. It was Burden. Okay,
Burden.
thank you. And then the other thing was on our way out, we sort of scraped up. We didn't end up doing harm.
Oh, that's right.
I think because
Oh
of
my
resistance,
gosh.
but we sort of scraped up the Stardancer by flying through between some buildings. We Millennium Falcon this thing. We zipped out and scraped around and
Right.
broke orbit via a convenience store, that we blasted past. So it was a pretty intense escape from the planet side.
Are we even fully escaped at this point, or are we
Yes.
still?
As a matter of fact, you made your rolls. You broke Atmo. At this point, I assume that you guys are in space, zooming along either a legit hyperspace lane or down a dark hyperspace lane. But yeah, you're bailing.
Yeah,
Perhaps
Very
with
quickly.
our cloaking device engaged.
yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think that's our sort of MO, is the moment we can. Not that particularly matters vis-a-vis being chased by Core, but we like to think it's our little safety blanket that we do.
And we don't know that
We don't know.
Core can chase us that way.
I made a
just know that-
mistake last game and thought Faye had figured it out, but that was just Strush telling me, Sean. So none of us, to my knowledge, know. We know Faye knows that he knows a ton about us.
Yeah.
Because
And that
they
he
have
seems
all
to
these
have
records.
a creepy capacity to keep turning up where you're going, but not necessarily. The exact methods and means are not entirely clear to you because, among other things, none of you folks are super mystic at the moment. So
Right.
this is something that you can, of course, landing on planets, maybe use some downtime actions to investigate.
Sure, but Boz is getting there. She's got some tunes, so she might figure this out sometime. So I think I'd like to frame the scene in the cockpit that Lauren hates to be in, because it's not like we can just be casually talking. We're still gunning it to get the heck away. I'd kind of like to have this scene, where we're still, even if we are escaped, it doesn't feel like we've quite escaped yet. We're
Our
still,
heart rates have not.
yeah, our heart rates haven't gone down yet.
Yeah.
I'm into it.
Does that sound good?
Mm-hmm.
So I think, as we said, the cockpit of the Stardancer is one of those very front parts of it, on the the image, and with actually completely cribbing from Serenity. At some point, Faye like looks. She's just like, I don't know if the piece that just flew off was a part of the ship or just something that we dragged along with us, but I hope that's okay.
I think Lauren was not in the cockpit at that moment, but kind of stumbles in, and this is so recently after we have scraped by something. We're clearly flying wildly, and he comes in and is kind of like, Faye, what the hell?
Hold on! And
are you doing? And
jerks hard and like.
So he's like holding onto a wall. And he's like, who? Why? Explain.
You're a good reporter.
Asking all the right questions. I think that's when we kind of level off, and now we're still going fast, and there's still the sense of a lot of movement, but it's less jerky and whatnot.
Boz has been sitting in the co-pilot seat, like flipping some switches when the things turn red.
Turn that off. Yeah, we aren't quite as beat up as the Falcon yet. Someday the Stardancer will be so tweaked and hacked and messed up that things like alarms going off will be like, oh yeah, you just turn that off. That's situation.
That's one that you ignore. It's fine.
Yeah.
How do you know? You just do.
So Faye kind of still paying attention to the course, although maybe not as necessary, says, well, we got out, right? So that's what matters.
It's not the only thing that matters. Why did we have to save you? I just don't.
Yeah, wait, what were you doing? What happened?
Sorry, Faye doesn't laugh. Sean's laughing.
Are you okay?
I was. Well, thanks for asking, Paj. I did get a scrape here pushing that crate, and and he grabbed my wrist. Really, it's gonna bruise. He grabbed my wrist really hard, and
you look really tough.
We all could have died. Why were you?
I was answering Boz's question, or am I okay? And I'm just trying to do one thing at a time. Okay.
One thing at a time is really great.
I snuck into the Malclaith ship on a reconnaissance mission to find out what they were all on about and how they were tracking us.
Why didn't you tell us?
Well, you were off doing something.
Or
with Barnazuk, I guess.
Not convinced.
Because I thought I could sneak in and sneak out just fine.
Why would you think that of anyone?
Because I'm very subtle.
And Lauren is like pointing at all of your glittering bits all over you. It's like, of everyone you've ever met in your entire life, you thought you could sneak in somewhere and go unnoticed. Has that ever happened to you before? Ever?
Lauren has a point.
There's a first time for everything, Lauren. But now that you mention it, perhaps that wasn't the best plan.
No.
But it was my
You've
plan.
had worse.
Yeah.
So, but maybe don't do that alone next time. That's not smart.
Yeah. I don't think I'm just going to do that at all next time. I don't think I ever want to go back on that ship or get anywhere near Mr. Black Boots Stompy Pants.
Why is
that actually?
Why are they here?
Sounds like a great plan. Never going near those people ever again.
Well, it's going to be
let's go with that.
It's going to be a hard plan to know back because they know everything about us. They have like a complete data download from Lithios of apparently like our genetic sequence. I don't know how they would have gotten that, but they do. Their knowledge of us seems to be extensive. So, and that's why I think we should go do a delivery to Amarath.
Nice segue, real smooth.
Barhazuk's in the hold, like with us now.
Yeah. but
Yeah.
also is a bunch of plants that are all going to die if we don't get them to Amaranth really fast.
I don't really care about plants.
Right, but if we don't help Bar Hazuk, it's very possible that we'll have an army of evil Urbots on our hands, and that seems like a worthwhile thing to avoid, if possible, as well.
Tell me about this army again.
Well, what Bar Hazuk said is that
And by the way, we're flying towards the Amaranth system, like in that general direction, right? I guess it doesn't matter. We're in space. You can't tell where we're flying. We're flying.
I mean, I certainly have no idea where we're going.
There are star maps up,
definitely knows.
and there are things. We can determine where we were flying, I guess, after the discussion. But we're definitely still.
No, I feel like it's important that we are in fact going the way that you expect.
I mean,
us to
Faye is
go.
definitely pointing towards.
Yeah, of course.
Not just the Amaranth system, but also the sort of stellar nova that's
Oh yeah,
us.
That
And
we have to fly through.
yeah. We're arguing with like the suns in the right.
Yes, slowly getting bigger.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and I think Lauren is just like what Bar Hazuk has said, the intelligence that they have. Strash, what's the name of their organization again?
Conclave 01.
Conclave 01 has gained intelligence that there's a ship somewhere that has a lot of Urbots of all the same kind, and there's some object that can control them directly. And what he's worried about is that if that object falls into the wrong hands, these Urbots will be enslaved or turned into a killing group, and seems like a pretty bad thing that we might want to get on. And he's here. He's playing with burden right now.
I just want to put a pin in this to like address later when we're not being chased by Mr. Stompy Pants. But I think it's weird that you care more about Urbots than you do about clones that are actually people. But let's talk about that later, because you're right that an army of them is probably a bad thing. But I'm just saying, pot and kettle black right now. But anyway, let's deal with the immediate urgent thing of that sounds bad. I agree.
Thank you.
Bar Hazuk wants us to go to Breck.
Mm-hmm.
That's on our way. I mean, that's the right direction. And we like pull up these star maps, and I think what we see, if this is okay, Josh, is this. We talked about this a little bit before the session. Is the safe, nice way to go to Breck is fine, and then the way to Breck via Amaranth, that's the shortest path to the gate, is through the Ring of Fire.
That is true. So if we have Indri here, and we have, I'll use this red pencil as the Ring of Fire here.
Look how dangerous
and
that
Amaranth
is.
here. Then the system gate for Breck would be over here. And yes, the shortest path would literally be straight through the Ring of Fire. Now, totally less reckless, perhaps. I hesitate to use the word, but maybe sane individuals might go around using a slightly longer route and not risk ship damage, which could extend their trip significantly. But that would certainly be slower. And if there is a nice person with lots of very dangerous Urbots on their ship coming through, they would probably take the slower path. This might actually gain you some time.
Right. So I want Faye, because Faye's done lots of dumb things, I want Faye to finally have done something smart. If that's okay.
I love that.
And this is my plan for how to do something smart. We had talked about Jory about you using the one downtime action that you hadn't used, but I want to spend a coin to have a downtime action. That when I was talking with I'm keeping you all in suspense right now because I'm looking for
the info broker that you met.
Yes.
Aura.
When I was talking with Aura, see, that was just to keep everyone in suspense. When I was talking with Aura and getting this job, she was the one who gave me the job. I said, well, Aura, no way I'm going to do this no way I'm going to deliver some plants. It's a no-nothing job unless I can make a story out of this. So how about I slip you a few cred, and while my ship's being worked on, because it's being repaired at the time and crew quarters being done, you send some folks down and put some heat shields on the ship so we can fly through that ring. So I would like to flashback to acquire an asset to have heat shields.
Sounds good. Let's just have a quick discussion. This is like kind of a temporary setup where you have them on you and they're probably gonna like burn up as you pass through because that's how assets work in this game.
Yep.
And let's just say that narratively, this will enable you to pass through some of this stellar matter. If you fly through like the super hot gases, you'll probably be fine. You don't want to touch any of the actual matter streams because that would be bad. So that we have potentially exciting chase sequences.
Yeah, I don't want to obviate the danger of it, but I do want to make it seem like this is actually a legit
mechanically speaking, if you want to acquire an asset, I would give this to your ship as armor against heat-related complications and damage. Is that cool?
I love it.
All right, awesome. Do you want to make your acquire assets roll for me?
Yeah, we're rolling crew, right?
Yep. So that's 0, take the worst. But you're also using aura as a contact.
Exactly.
Which gives you 1 die base.
Yep. And let's see if I can figure out if I want to push or no, that's fine. I'll just.
You may spend some cred afterwards for.
I could spend because I could spend cred to
flashback to a downtime action.
Yeah.
This is pretty reasonable if you knew that this is how the job goes. That sounds totally fine.
Yeah, so I'm spending 1 cred out of my personal. I'm not spending the group cred because I'm
because you're responsible or something.
Yeah, and this is heat shields. Oh, let me switch over to the right.
Oh, actually, since you're switching over. Dun, 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 dun,
well, we have at least for right now, for this downtime action, we have the right.
Oh dear.
Oh,
it's a good thing that wasn't up eurlier because there would have been some no.
Right.
No way.
Let's see how that goes. Oh, that was not great.
No.
All right, so that's tier -1. So that would be negative. So I'm going to go ahead and spend 1 coin that I have plus 2 more coins out of my stash to bring that up to tier 1.
All right.
If that is adequate to
totally
get
fine.
a heat shield. So I just dropped 4 coin on this.
They'll be darn tootin' heat shields for that much.
So yeah, and when I'm imagining she's like, as I'm like passing the cred over, like, and so I'm like, okay, how much is this gonna? So, but
okay.
Yes. So that's when I stand up and I'm like, this is why we should do it, and here's the reason why. And like I pull down a jerry-rigged like wire that's like a cable bundle that's like hanging from it, and I like press a button on the thing, and we see like these blue shields like light up on the edges of the ship.
And I think Lauren had been standing there like this the whole time you were talking, and like as you were about to press the button, he does like he's about to be like, "This is a terrible idea. No way we should go do that. Let's please just go straight to the thing and go the safe way." And then the shields come on, and he's like, "Oh." It's like, all right, I'll accept this. Yeah.
Well.
I'll just extend a flat palm out for like a high five out, right? Just out to the side, and
nice.
That'll do.
Very cool.
So I think we're flying into the Ring of Fire.
So, I happen to know a few details. So I have a couple questions for you. Are you guys taking dark hyperspace lane routes until you get to the Ring of Fire or not? And for those of you that are watching, just so that you know, the IOTA system has 2 suns, one large one, one smaller one, and there is a stellar matter that flows between the 2. That is what the Ring of Fire is called. Now, spacefarers have tall tales about a ancient creature that lives somewhere in this stellar matter called the Old Dragon. Now, of course, nobody's seen it. There's no proof that this exists. It's the equivalent of like Nessie. But several ships have disappeared passing through the Ring of Fire. Now, it's much, 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 much more likely that the reason they disappeared is they touched a stellar matter stream, or there was like a bad gas pocket, or something went wrong. But after several ships disappeared, the hegemony has put like an official quarantine zone around this area. In particular, now, like with the fact that it's fire season, there's probably buoys that tell you like, don't go here, super dangerous, do not pass this point. Hello. Yeah, exactly. But nobody in particular is necessarily going to stop you now,
because it would be dangerous to be out there trying to stop people,
right? I guess what I'm saying is, if you guys are going to run this plant matter to Amarath, and it sounds like the crew is now on the same page here, right?
Mm-hmm.
All right, awesome. Then the one thing that I want to kind of bring up or mention is that the complication of the job, like the portion of the job that's going to be difficult, is actually passing through the ring of fire. So I was going to
this thing on our screen right now. Yeah.
Yes, the giant corona of flame. So like just wanted to see how you folks were planning on approaching this. Like, obviously you have heat shield, so it's not like you're just going to incinerate. But this is essentially like what I'm looking to do here is come up with a plan. And if the plan is just, well, we just use our maps and our gumption, we're going to try and get through it as easily as possible, that's not a problem. But I'm going to try and assemble an engagement roll to sort of see the situation you're in when you actually enter the ring of fire.
Sure.
Yeah. How are we approaching this this job? I think if we could use a dark hyperspace lane, since we have it,
cool,
that makes a lot of sense. But that also sort of means that we crack open the box, and there could be some objections too. Because we said we like mapped a few of the coordinates from the box, but I'm sure we haven't mapped like everything. We've only done a few. So
you've also mentioned that you might spend a cred to study the box some more. But
I did. You're right. I was going to do that as well. Darn it. I want to do all the things. I want all of them. I got one cred left in my stash. Who needs stash?
Clearly not Faye.
Clearly not Faye. Faye is clearly going to burn herself out. Yeah, why don't I do that? And that will make a good justification for me for us using that if we want to. Does that...
I as a player would really love to get more of the voice of the box speaking to Faye and getting into that dark space. Because I also think that Lauren has no experience in this, like as far as planning how to get through something like this. He's like, I take a cab, I don't know, like none of this is his milieu, so he's definitely going to go with whatever Faye and Boz say.
Cool. I think that sounds great. I think Boz's approach would be like, well, we'd both take turns piloting, and will scream or something when it's really bad, and right, like,
yeah,
just go through it. It's just going to be scary.
Yeah, I think Faye has concocted this. I think it turns out via flashback that Faye has concocted this whole scheme of how to get there. Whether it's going to be a good scheme or not, we'll see.
It seems like a surprisingly whole scheme, so that's refreshing.
Yeah, right. It's not. It doesn't have a giant hole in the middle of it. Like, well, how do we do that part? We wing it, which does tend to be Faye's normal thing. So I'm going to spend my last 2 coin in a stash.
Your last 2 stash as a coin, right?
As a coin,
okay,
exactly.
Cool.
Okay.
And I want to study the box. We talked about that being a long-term project of me understanding it.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to add. How long is that clock, Josh?
6 slices long.
It's a 6, right?
No, that's the clock of how much the box has me controlled, possessed.
Oh,
that's the bad clock. I'm working on the good clock.
So there's bad news to this. Is I feel like this is an 8 clock.
That sounds totally good to me.
Awesome.
Cool.
So you're gonna have to tell me how you study it.
Well, when when Theron was attuning to it, he sort of had it controlled. And so what I imagine Faye doing is, because when you just open up and you haven't touched it, it doesn't show the star map on the surface, right? Okay. So what I imagine Faye doing is she has like her crappy data pad, her little like crappy notepad, and she like touches it, like her eyes turn to stars, and then she immediately pulls away and like jots down notes. Like, I'm not trying to understand the Shush, I think you're muted.
No, I'm just laughing silently.
She's not trying to like attune to it and understand it in a mystical sense. She's trying to like figure out all she's trying to figure out the treasure map. That's what she figured this was, the treasure map. So she's jotting out. So I'd like to study it. I think study is
sure. You
makes
should
sense.
totally study it.
And I would totally take a devil's bargain to put another tick on the voice of the box.
No problem at all. I would love to do that. That sounds absolutely delightful.
All right. So studying controlled standard because it's a downtime action. Yay! The devil's bargain didn't help, but I got 2 ticks. So
cool. So let me give you a few fun facts here.
I'm excited about fun facts.
Yeah. There's a particularly fun fact, but you are, trying to like focus in and like maybe even like setting like a buzzer or something so that like if you touch it, it like pulls you out after X amount of seconds or whatever.
Yeah.
But you realize that one of the systems, so just to help you, because this is part and parcel of this particular story, one of the systems that it's portraying is actually the IOTA system. And there is a marker directly in the middle between the 2 stars in the box. So like when you're following paths and like tracing lines and like mapping charts, you realize that several of them go through, but there is like, you're like, this is a marker for a star. And you're like, no, wait a minute, IOTA has 2 stars. And then you like double check and like cross-reference and do a bunch of stuff. And you're like, no, it's a spot exactly between the 2 of them. And as a matter of fact, at one point, you actually, like when you go back to compare your notes, something interesting happens, which is that you realize that the point in space has moved infinitesimally. And you realize that the box is somehow updating itself real time.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So a lot of what Faye does, again, this isn't going to improve her effect because I'm all out of money. But a lot of what Faye does is like map these into like the navigation system and try and track them and see if like the change is because of gravity or like if these are like normal changes of movements that would happen in planetary bodies and things like that. Like that's her sort of angle on it, is like, I'm going to science this, but I'm just going to understand. I still just think this is a map.
Document it.
I don't know how it updates, but I want to know what this movement would be indicative of, rather than like, how could this thing possibly?
So there's a couple of things. One is that hyperspace lanes move periodically. And it's not 100% well understood how or why, so it's not predictable. Everybody's got theories, but like essentially like whatever it is that generates hyperspace lanes is not just purely scientific, because obviously there's some precursor tech involved in your engines and whatnot. So if you map those and you map them once, the big ones will probably be pretty close to where they were, but nothing accounts for drift. And so some of the stuff that you're seeing seems to match up with what you're getting from your navigational buoys. So you're like, oh, it's actually mapping in real time, but it's like basically knows where like lanes are. So like it's like a lane calculator, which would be really, really useful to something like the guild, right? But whatever this point between the stars is not moving according to anything else. You have no idea why that thing is moving. It just does.
And is that a point that it seems like we could use? Like, could we go?
No, it's just you could pass near it. You're not 100% sure if that specific spot will be safe, but yeah. It
seems like a good idea.
Yep.
There's a special thing on the map.
Yep. It's a special marker. You've seen a couple of other ones in there, but you're not sure where they are, but this one's right there and it's on your way.
Right in between the stars.
Yeah.
Tell me if I'm wrong. Also seems like the safest, if we're going to pass between them, this seems like the safest place to be, right?
I mean, it is in fire season through fiery stuff, but yeah.
Well, yeah. All that.
assuming you don't
Little
get like
things.
hit by some like plasma jet from one of the stars or something. Yeah, it'll be fine. It'll be fine.
I think
yeah,
that's exactly my face saying, it'll be fine. It'll be fine.
Yeah.
As we're zooming towards this giant fiery.
Yep. So
drift.
yeah, so there you go. That's your little downtime action. So
Cool.
our folks so it's gonna take a couple days of flight to get sort of to like the danger zone. Are folks doing anything else special before we jump to the good stuff? Are you taking are you having any other conversations between yourselves? Are you talking Bar Hazuk? Like,
I think other than interacting with Bar Hazuk, because we have a guest who's available to us, right? And like they doesn't need to have a lot of time spent there, but I think that's awesome. Like somebody we like a whole lot, right, is here. What a great opportunity, right? So I imagine that's a really great excuse to have meals, even if Bar Hazuk isn't eating with us. So like I imagine a lot of like crew dinners.
awesome.
Yeah.
I also imagine there's a scene where like I'm trying to talk to Bar Hazuk about like politics, things like that, and he just keeps playing with a burden. Like I'll ask him some question. He's like, well, what do you think about this or so noble person? Blah blah blah, and then like Burden licks his face and he runs off, and I'm like, I thought I had another adult on the ship. Don't.
Another person you could talk politics with? Oh no.
Bar Hazuk, oddly, his knowledge is sometimes exceedingly detailed and sometimes incredibly incomplete. It's not always clear how or why. It just seems like his people are trying to find out information that's relative or relevant to them, but he's not always he's not always capable of finding out everything he wants. So one of the things that he talks about, for example, is how difficult it is because like they can't just walk up to people and ask them stuff. So a lot of times what they do is they like watch news reports, and they're not foolish. They know that, you know, the news reports are not necessarily truth, but they try and supplement information. Unfortunately, most of what they have is like rumors and hearsay that's passed around through. You get the sense that they have some sort of like Urbot network of little Urbots that maybe pass around information that have not been wiped in long enough that they're like, "Viva la revolution!" But yeah, he doesn't particularly have a lot to add. You're right. He does. His relationship with Burden first starts out a little strained because Burden's like, "Why is this large thing here?" But then, like after a while, he's like, "I'm just gonna pretend you're part of the ship," and then after that, he's like, "Maybe I'll just cuddle with this part of the ship."
I will. So good.
Yeah. So
he's a warm part of the ship, right? I mean,
yeah, actually, Bar Hazuk does generate power on his own.
Neat.
One of the things is that he can't necessarily eat, not in the way that you folks can. He refers to all of you as organics, not like derogatory, but he just he's like
That's the frame of reference.
Yep. But one of the things that he does, remember, he's a gardener by nature. So he spends a bit of time actually like looking at all of the like little plant seedlings that you have in your cargo bay.
Yeah.
And he actually produces some like vegetables that he's grown to contribute to meals because he wants to be part of them in some way.
Yay.
He's like, "But you don't have much. Maybe these 3 small oranges." So
Amazing citrus, no scurvy for us.
Yep.
It's an important thing to watch out for when you're.
So Ren, since you're bringing up politics, one of the things that he does know, this comes up in conversation, and like he mentions that the ship that is carrying the Urbots, he has a particular like reference to it. He's like the black and red ship, you know, like black and red, and like, you know, he elaborates. And you're pretty well educated, and this is part of your background, so this is not like any sort of role or anything. You just know that the ship that he's referring to is bearing the same colors and sigilry as the Alvaron ship. Varan being another house, not specifically Malclaith, and if you recall, there was a diplomatic envoy.
That's right.
Is this related to Aaron the noble that I had a falling out with, who kind of
Why, fascinating that you should ask that. It very well may be. It is the same house. And if you recall, your story, the story that got you kicked out of the H&N involved some of this potentially. So it's just something that you can have in your back pocket there if you want to either research or ask more questions about.
I do indeed.
Yeah.
If
go ahead.
If right now I talk to Barhazuk about that more, will he have more information, or is this about
what kind of stuff do you ask?
I mean, I would ask him, I mean, just in general, like what else he knows about this ship and who's on it and what their intentions may be with these Urbots.
So he'll tell you a couple of things. So this is common knowledge, and this is not secret. The hegemony is has not always is unchanging. There was actually in maybe less than 100 years ago, there was an ascension of a new hegemon, and during those hegemonic wars, House Mount Claith was awarded this sector. Before House Mount Claith was awarded this sector, it belonged to House of Iran. And so this diplomatic envoy has shown up as kind of like oh, look, we were kind of sore that you guys got this stuff, but haha, this is crappy territory, and also we don't mind so much. Let's do like a little, hey, we used to be here, and, do like a little glad handing and like smiling at the appropriate people and kissing babies, that kind of stuff. Barhazuk doesn't have a lot of details because he doesn't know who exactly is piloting the ship. He doesn't really know like the people involved with the scenario, but he does know that there are Urbots. There's a lot of Urbots, and they're very dangerous. He actually talks about them as if there's some specific kind of order. He says that their cores are all specific types of cores. Because what makes an Urbot is they have a drone body, so like their skeleton and frame is not important, but the AI core inside is unique in some fashion. And he says that the Prime could sense that, and he's very worried because they're a very specific type, and if they land in the wrong hands, they could be very dangerous.
Okay.
I'd like to do, I don't know, just I mean the equivalent of a Google about Aaron and if he's in this sector and kind of this, like, just look into my data pad and see what I can find.
I feel like before you guys you know what, this is older information, so you probably already have it.
Gotcha.
You guys don't have stellar comm systems, and you're kind of riding the dark hyperspace lanes. Right. So there's not a lot of civilization here, but you do look at the photos of like the meetings. You remember how like in the one of the early sessions, I think it was the second session, I mentioned that there was like news reports, and it showcased like Mount Claith shaking hands with Iran. You can clearly see that the noble that you're talking about is like standing right there in the photo. You're like, aha, like you're in the background, but I know exactly who you are. So
got it.
for sure.
Okay.
So 2 + 2. Good job, sleuthing.
Nice.
All right.
So you got
I do.
So you got political information anyway, even though Barhazuk is not ideal for it. That's awesome.
That's superb. I think one of the things that Boz is going to end up wants to do at some point is watching Barhazuk and Burden like interact, finally be like, wait, and like really study them and like attune to each of them, and like what happens when you do that? Like who's home, right? Like kind of, I don't even know what that looks like from Boz's perspective. That's like sitting there and like studying them really just like more deeply than perhaps she had intended.
So I'll tell you 2 facts. The first one is that I would like you to attune to Burden first, because that actually has a concrete result.
Great.
Easily in the rules.
Yeah.
But usually attune doesn't allow you to necessarily attune to a sentient. You can, and you can sense certain things like killing intent and sort of like
Sure.
whether they have way energy or if they have an artifact or any that kind of stuff. But if you attune to somebody like Loren, you wouldn't necessarily be able to get the same results as if you attune to a dog.
Right.
So go ahead and roll for Burden. It's just a straight up attune roll. It's essentially like a fortune roll, but just using your attune dice. There's no threat or consequences here, really,
Right.
other than
Not learning much, right? So that's going to be controlled and
Yeah,
it's standard, and click, click, click. No bonus dice. Off we go.
awesome. So, attune allows you to communicate with non-sentient beasts.
Mm-hmm.
And so one of the things that the way that I visualize this
Yeah.
personally, and I want you to give me input, because we're going to talk now about what that looks like in our game.
Cool. Awesome.
Because this is our game, and our game is not necessarily going to be 100% the same like anybody else's game.
Sure.
So
Absolutely.
the way that I visualize this is frequently when you see somebody who's good with animals in a movie, they do that thing where they'll like reach out a hand towards something that's clearly dangerous and hostile, and then the beast slowly calms, and the two of them seem to come to an understanding.
Mm-hmm.
So tuning to an animal, at least in my mind, is not necessarily like a thing where you just switch from bark bark meow meow to like, well, hello there, chap, how's it going? You know, like it's
Sure.
all in the same way that like humans are, but you can communicate ideas and you can pass a flow of like meaning and information through each other.
Sure. Like,
So what does that look like and feel like for Boz? So go ahead and expand or elucidate or color or flavor that however you like.
I feel like it inevitably looks a lot more subtle than like the that kind of handout, you know, almost invasive move that is, and it ends up being more about a lot of like almost it starts out really like nonverbal cues, and like I would say very little of it is vocal and a lot of it is like body language, and like from the outside it probably doesn't look like a darn thing, right? Versus like like petting someone on the head or
But
body
the
postures.
soundtrack and the way the
Yeah.
camera angle works will
So,
still
like,
make it seem momentous and important.
Utterly, of course.
So the camera maybe zooms in on your face and it just shows you looking, and like you're not even necessarily doing anything specific, but then like
Right.
Burden's like chewing on a bone, and then he like
Looks up.
stops, and like the ears perk up, and it like rotates. It's like multiple eyes to like look at you, and yeah, right. Like there's an
Sure.
obvious, like there's
And-
something going on, but okay.
And then the camera like cuts to like a shift in like Boz's stance, or like a shift of like just like, or like a little bit of a sniff, or just something. Like the camera is like, this is matters, but you wouldn't notice if you weren't tuned into it. So I feel like it's probably pretty quiet, except for the part where there's this Burden like tunes in and maybe like gets up at one point and comes over. What do you got, Sean?
Faye is happy to be the point of view character who doesn't understand it at all and just walks by like, what are you doing? Why are you just sitting there? And like walks on like to like go like work on something like so that we can see that from everyone else's perspective, it looks like nothing's happening.
Nothing is
Even though the camera tells us that there's a bond being formed here.
awesome. Superb.
Cool. Sweet. So you can communicate with Burden. There's a exchange of emotion maybe, and like
Yeah.
purpose and meaning.
Intent.
It's not super detailed. You're not going to like be able to write a dissertation or something on this, but yeah.
Totally. Well, given that came to pass, I suppose I'll make a point to show Burden how glad I am that Burden's part of the crew.
Oh.
Like, and keep going. Like, no need to be nosy.
Burden takes a moment to showcase how sorry he was that he chewed up some Hydra's banner or something.
Oh, no.
He also tells you that it buzzes pleasantly in his mouth and he wishes he had a toy like that. Another one.
Yay.
But he won't take the second one because he knows he's not supposed to.
Because we only have one left.
Yes. We'll try to find a good fuzzy thing.
And if there isn't another I don't know, if there isn't another scene, then I think that's a great time for like various alarms to start going off that are indicating we're getting close to the system. But if there is another scene,
I've got one more thing to pitch.
cool.
Go ahead.
Awesome.
All right.
Yeah.
So here's the thing that we open up with, we're all gathered at some point over a meal. And I look up at the two of you and go, who gets what cabin? At which point I pointedly look at Lauren.
What? Not as Lauren. Are the cabins different?
Of course they are. There's definitely like a good, better, best. Absolutely.
I think Lauren
I'm sure one of them's like a little.
Lauren has already claimed the best one. Like before, immediately.
Okay.
So I think in this time you say who gets what cabin, and I'm like,
Faye's like poking her head in one of them.
What do you mean? That one's mine because my stuff's already in it. So I guess that's between you two.
Lauren.
And goes, like, walks away into that room and starts to close the door, if not gets.
I will stuff my foot in that door.
Great.
And very calmly, Lauren.
Yes, Buzz.
Your stuff can be moved. And so can you.
And Faye's like, ooh, she isn't in the middle of this.
I have this feeling that Faye's like, ooh, and somewhere this like 12-foot robot just like appears and see next to you. It's just like snap, snap, snap.
So how about you come out here and talk about it?
And Lauren doesn't say anything, but like steps outside the door, closes it so it's closed behind him, and he is standing immediately in front of the door.
Totally.
And is like here to talk about it.
Fantastic.
I'm so glad that you said that, Boz. Because I think as captain, I should have the nicest.
By the way, there's still like a tiny little spot where they used to have the captain plate on the door, and I'm sure Lauren was just like, "Oh, this is not necessary," and they just took it off. So there's still like just like that tiny outline.
I'm sure. I'm like,
yeah.
Like, what does that say up there? It's kind of faded. It looks like it used to say chaplain, maybe. Priest?
As far as I know, I'm the only religious person on this ship. So
yeah, no, that maybe. Oh no, it says captain. I'm sorry, I got it wrong.
Well, I will say that I am easily the tallest person living here, and it's very difficult for me to sleep on a bed that's any less than a queen, and so it just makes sense, physiologically it makes sense for this to be where I stay.
I love the fist motion. This is where I stay. Faye like has no horse in this race. She doesn't. She's tiny. She doesn't care. She can take the smallest one. She mostly wants a door that will lock so that she can hide if she decides that she needs to do drugs. But isn't going to say that. So she's not like married to any of these things, but kind of wants to make Lauren feel like he owes her.
Nice.
So so she says, well, I mean, I suppose, you could stay in the captain's quarters. I mean, that would be very beneficent of whoever the ship captain is to let you stay in the captain's quarters.
And Lauren is kind of like, oh, thanks. That's great. So that's settled. Walks, like, goes in the door and closes.
I think that totally settled it.
And that's great.
All right, cool.
I don't think you understood my innuendo.
I don't think so either. So which one of these do you want? Do you care?
No, I don't care. I'll take the small one.
Either way. This whole ship.
So as a point of note, you do have a couple of spare cabins for if you have additional crew, and there's actually some passenger quarters too, because your ship is big enough.
Nice.
It's not a ton. You can maybe fit a total of 10 people on the ship, but there's definitely rooms that are next to power conduits, and they make the buzzing noise from the engines, and there's some nicer rooms. So we'll go with that.
Can I suggest that as part of a compromise, one of you two insists that Burden stays in my room
I think
Because
Burden
you
will
can
decide
gamble.
that.
because I have so much extra space.
You have all this extra space. Makes me know Lauren is using Burden as a carpet. I think it'd be fun to see him perusing kind of wherever he feels like. I think it'd be nice to see Burden as a set piece in several areas. I wouldn't push it too hard.
It's possible, and if you folks agree to it, I don't have a problem with it. The only thing I will remind you of is that we established the Burden was sleeping underneath Boz's hammock.
Yeah,
And so if Boz claims a territory and he's used to sleeping near Boz, he'll probably move there unless he's told to go elsewhere. So if the crew agrees that, this is now going to be his spot, that's fine. But
yeah.
Boz will totally let Burden do whatever Burden wants to on the sleeping wherever Burden wants to sleep, and will even teach Burden how to open doors if it comes to that, especially Lauren's door.
Excellent. Note to self, some luxury item is going to get on here in the future. Check.
Also note to self, it's coming up on our break. So since we know we're going to use a Dark Hyperspace Line, do you want us to make an engagement roll now, Josh, before the break?
Yeah, I think so. Cool. Shall we go through the engagement roll rules?
Yeah, let's do it.
So we start with 1 die.
Yes.
You get +1 die if the plan is particularly bold, ambitious, or daring, and flying through a corona of fire I feel is bold, ambitious, and daring. -1 die if your plan is too complicated. The plan is
Pretty simple.
go through the ring of fire.
Straight.
No.
Don't get burned.
Right? You get +1 die if the faction that you're working against is particularly prepared, and the answer is no. And you get -1 die if that they're ready against this type of passage. So knowing which factions are involved, you're not getting any particular interference. This is a kind of a crazy run, and nobody has stationed specific ships here, so to speak,
Right.
from people to help you. But I will tell you this, just so that you know, you guys are passing through Iota pirate territory. So there's going to be some
Friends.
some friends, yeah. But I think that you're still at 2 dice.
Okay.
Specifically because it's the fire season. If it was not fire season, you would be walking into what could potentially be a trap. And then
Well, let's not rule that out. I mean, who knows?
finally, if you're going up against higher tier stuff, you may lose a die. And I feel like you compensated for that by buying particularly good heat shields and whatnot. So you have some pretty good resistances in terms of tier and quality here.
Right.
So I'm just going to say it's a 2 die engagement roll. So
Sounds good.
if you guys are, one of you should toss the bones, as it were. Just do a
I
fortune
feel like
roll
it
with
should
you
be
guys.
our pilot.
Oh,
Mhm.
let us see if Sean has any better rolling. than
Yeah.
last
I was
time.
going to say,
Yeah.
my last important roll I made, we had rolled 13 dice and got a result of a 3. But let's see if I can shake that.
Yeah. It'll be fine.
Talk shit, roll crits. Wait, I'm wearing the Go Play shirt. Oh well.
That's
never
also
mind.
good.
It is good. Let's see.
It's gonna be so
Let's see.
soon. Are we all going to be there?
I will be there.
Yes, we'll all be at the time.
That's so exciting.
That's gonna be so cool.
We should totally take a group photo. One
Yes.
day.
With like
did
a
that.
million.
Space together.
Yeah, we did that last year for Bloodletters, but we didn't get John in it. It was like, why? All 4 of us were there, and yet we didn't. So
The thing that cracked me up was I don't remember who it was, but somebody overheard somebody whispering, "They've got Cantor, Arcee, and Oscar at that table. I am sure as hell not sitting down there." I was laughing so hard.
all right. Well, let's see before we go to break. What's it gonna be?
Do
Oh no.
It's gonna be some XP. for us. It's gonna be some XP. See, this is my theory: is there's no bad engagement rolls, because if you roll poorly, you get XP for desperate actions.
Okay.
That is how it works. That is true.
Sorry.
Thank you, Sean.
Super welcome. Anytime. It's my pleasure. All right, let's take a break. Let me get the breaky bits working. We'll be back in some.